It's been almost 22 years since Sarah cut me open and left me to die. Although the events of that night stick with me, even now, I'm happy to say that my life since then has been absolutely amazing. I have a job that I love, the house I always wanted, the car of my dreams, and cherished above all, a family. My wife, Scarlett, is the most beautiful, intelligent, caring woman I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. I was in a dark, dark place when she found me. At rock bottom, you could say. Living on the streets, fighting every second to survive. But, and I'll never know why, she saw something in me. She saw potential and good. She picked me up when I was at my lowest and brought me back to reality. And since the day our eyes first met, we've been inseparable. Then there's my daughter, Lily. The most pure, loving, and caring soul there is. So much like her mother. 11 years she's been in my life. The day she was born was the day that the nightmares that had haunted me for so long ceased to exist. Until the night of her 11th birthday. That night, we had just finished opening presents and eating cake and ice cream. I'll never forget that night. The look on Lily's face, her eyes glistening with joy, a smile so beautiful and bright that even the saddest of people couldn't help but to return one once they saw hers. But it wasn't the cake or the presents that made her so happy. She's never been one to care much for material things. It was our presence, the fact that we were all together. And that really tells you what kind of person she is. If only I could have seen the path that lay before me. Before us. Lily's past the age of tucking in, but every night I pop my head in and tell her how much I love her before heading to Scarlett and I's room. As long as we've been together, I'm still just as much in love with her as I was the day we met. Every night we talk, for hours, about everything, still learning new things about each other. Every night, until we finally drift off to sleep. This night, I awaken a little after 2 a.m., sweating profusely. There's an odd feeling in the air. Something I've felt before, yet somehow unrecognizable at the same time. I glance over at Scarlett, who's fast asleep, and into the edge of my bed. My eyes, still adjusting to the darkness of the room, see what appears to be a figure in front of my bedroom door. "Lily?" I ask, assuming she had had a bad dream and was scared. "What's wrong, sweetie?" I get no response. Suddenly, the figure disappears and reappears. This time not by the door, but at the foot of my bed, and now it's much taller. "Who's—" Before I can finish my sentence, it disappears and reappears once again. This time, on top of me. What I now see to be a face, just inches from my own. But this face is far from unknown. It's the same face that had haunted me, the same face that tried to end my life all those years ago. It's her. It's Sarah. Feeling emotions I hadn't felt in over a decade, I'm paralyzed, unable to move or even speak. She stares directly into my eyes for what seemed like an eternity. Before I could even blink, she moves, her mouth now brushing against my ear. What happened next shook me to my very soul. 3 words. 3 words I'd hoped I'd never hear again. "You did this." As soon as the words escaped her mouth, she tightly grasps my throat with both hands. Unable to breathe, but my movement returns. Even so, my strength couldn't match hers. My body shakes, my legs kick, my hands on her hands, trying desperately to free myself from her grip. But my energy is drained, my body goes limp, and what little strength I had is gone. My eyes closed and everything goes black. It's happening again. She's trying to kill me, and this time she's going to succeed. I hear Scarlett let out a scream as my eyes open once more. "Baby, wake up," she says, lovingly shaking me into consciousness. Hey, it's only a dream," she tells me, her hands gently placed on both sides of my face. Babe?" I ask, confusedly. "I'm here," she says. "Everything's okay." I then proceed to tell her everything, every detail of the dream, the sweat that I could feel dripping down my body, the immeasurable fear, the inability to breathe with Sarah choking the life out of me. "It was only a dream, my love. She's gone and she'll never hurt you again," Scarlett reassures me. We went downstairs and continued with our daily routine. Breakfast, dropping Lily off at school, then on to work. A normal day, still, there's a thought that wouldn't leave my mind. Why now? After 22 years, 11 of those without a single nightmare, why did I see her now? That night, I told Lily I loved her. Scarlett and I exchanged details of our days, then off to sleep. A deep, peaceful sleep, until once again I awaken, right around the same time as the night before. This time, there is no shape, no strange feeling, all feels normal. I close my eyes and attempt to drift back to sleep, but before I can, I hear a loud thud that sounded as though it was coming from downstairs. It wasn't uncommon for Lily to wake up in the middle of the night and go down for a glass of milk. However, upon exiting my room to check on her, I notice her door is propped open and she's fast asleep in her bed. I make my way downstairs, into the living room, checking every room, from the living room and the kitchen to the laundry room and the garage. I don't find anything out of the ordinary, so I assume that while half asleep, I imagined a noise that wasn't actually there. As I walk back through the living room and toward the stairs, I notice something in my peripheral, something that definitely was not there before. I quickly turn my head and a chill rushes through my body. A lamp flashes to life, flickering first, before revealing my greatest fear. It's Sarah, standing across the room. Locked in a stare, I try to make myself move, to scream, to run. Suddenly, she begins to move toward me, this time slowly, floating, my fear deepening with every inch she moves. She places her hand on my face, eyes still locked, and says those 3 words. "You did this," before vanishing right before my eyes. My body returns to normal, but still in shock, I stand there for a moment, staring blankly into the blackness of the house. When I finally make it back to my bed, I pass out almost instantly. When I wake up the next morning, my first thought isn't making breakfast or kissing Scarlett good morning. It was her, and the terrifying events of the night before. Was what I saw real, or an extremely vivid nightmare, perhaps? And if it was, I once again have to ask myself, why now? For the first time in 16 years, I chose to withhold something from Scarlett. I told myself that what I was seeing couldn't possibly be real, only dreams, and just as the others did, they would pass. It was a weekend, and as they did every week, Scarlett and Lily headed to the store to do a little shopping. I decided to cook them lunch for when they returned. While standing at the counter, I feel a sudden chill. I glance around at the empty house but see nothing, so I continue chopping vegetables for the meal I was to cook. A few minutes go by, everything seems normal. Then, I feel it. A stabbing pain, a cutting pain, in both of my legs. I collapse to the ground, screaming in agony. As I roll up my pant legs to see what is happening, I feel a warm, thick wetness. Pain now courses through my entire body, as I struggle to grab the paper towels off of the counter to wipe the blood from my legs. When I finally wipe it all away, I see 2 words, one on each leg. The words, far worse than those spoken by Sarah. On my left leg, Jack. On the right, Riley. As shock sets in, the memories return. Memories I had tried so hard to forget. My sons, my beautiful twins. Jack and Riley were our miracles. Neither I nor Scarlett had ever had twins born into our families, but still we were gifted with them. Born a year and a half before Lily, they were our world. For 7 months we cared for them. They brought a kind of joy to our lives that neither of us had ever felt. Then, for reasons we didn't know, they got sick. No matter how many doctors we saw, how much hope we had, they only got worse, until one day they couldn't fight anymore. No one knew why. The doctors were baffled, and Scarlett and I were heartbroken. I didn't think it was possible to feel a pain worse than having your throat slit wide open, until the day we lost them. Then Lily came along. She healed our wounds, took away the unbearable pain we felt every second of every day. I never forgot Jack or Riley, but I accepted that they were gone. This doesn't make sense. The only words Sarah had spoken to me in 22 years were, "You did this." So why now is she forcing me to relive events that occurred nearly 10 years after she tried to kill me? Maybe she simply wanted to fuck with my mind, or... And that's when it hit me. My twins had passed, with no reason. An unknown sickness that even the best doctors with the best medicine couldn't fight. And if Sarah is back now, who's to say this isn't the first time she's interfered with my life? Who's to say she hasn't been here all along? Who's to say she isn't responsible for... My body begins to shake, tears rolling down my face. It was her. It was fucking her. Simultaneous dread and rage coursed through my body. "You fucking did this, didn't you? You took my boys from me." Show yourself, you bitch! I know you're there. I fall to my knees, my eyes filled with the tears of my son's loss. Staring at the floor, I hear 3 words in my ear. You did this. I quickly stand, swinging my fist, but there's nothing there. I stand there trying to catch my breath, not knowing what to do with what I just learned, when I hear my phone ring. I see Scarlett's face on the screen, so I compose myself as best I can and answer. Hey babe, what's up? I ask. Just letting you know we're on the way home. Is there anything you need me to pick up? She asks. I wanted to say yes, to give myself a little time to pull myself together, but I couldn't be alone any longer. So I respond with, no, I can't think of anything. Just get home and drive safe. I love you both. I chose not to tell Scarlett about what had happened. I didn't want to worry her or force her to feel the pain I was feeling. Instead, we went on with our day. We ate dinner, then went into the living room for some family time. We'd all play board games at least once a week, usually on a Friday or Saturday. It was a wonderful night, and for a while I had entirely forgotten about what had happened earlier that day, until we all headed to bed. As soon as the lights were off and my head hit the pillow, the memories rushed back into my mind. I tried to sleep for hours, but those thoughts were now, once again, haunting me. So much pain, so many wounds reopened, but finally relief came in the form of a deep slumber. Unfortunately, it didn't last. Just as I had before, I awaken at 2 a.m., after having fallen asleep around 30 minutes before. I look to the other side of the bed, to Scarlett, but to my surprise, she isn't there. She's the type of person that, when she falls asleep, she isn't moving until morning. I get out of bed to see where she's gone and to check on Lily. As I walk up to Lily's door, I see her bed is empty. Just as my mind begins to race, I hear a scream more painful than any I'd heard before. It was Lily. I rush down the stairs, tripping halfway down. I get to my feet and begin frantically running through the house, screaming for Lily. I don't find her, anywhere. Panicking, terrified, so many thoughts racing through my mind, I hear a thud upstairs. I run up the stairs, yelling for Lily as I go, tears soaking my face. Opening her door, I see only emptiness. I run to my own room, and what I saw. Across my wall, written in massive red letters, those 3 words. You did this. It's blood. It's fucking blood. But whose? In a daze from what I was seeing, I slowly back out of my room, until I hit something. I turn around to see Scarlett standing there, now face to face with me. She's holding a knife, the largest one we owned, both her and the blade covered in blood. What did you do? I ask her, trying to control my tears. I get no response. She only stands there, staring, her eyes blood red. You did this, she whispered, before running the blade across her own throat. I fall to the floor, speechless, holding her in my arms as she breathes her last breath. It's been nearly a month since the events of that night, nearly a month since I lost them. Lily hasn't been found, and I'm now the prime suspect in the murder of my own wife and daughter. The 2 people I loved more than anything in this world, the 2 people I would have given my life for. And as much pain as I've been through, Sarah refuses to leave. For over 2 decades, somewhere in the back of my mind, I worried that she would come for me, worried that she would rip me away from the 2 things that brought me true happiness, my reasons for existing. And now that they're gone, I want more than anything to die, to be with them. Scarlett, Lily, Jack, and Riley. I've tried everything, but Sarah won't allow it. Living in a world without them is a far worse fate than death, and she isn't finished watching me suffer yet.